By the way, this is the same guy who rails against people who don't believe in his particular voodoo.
Right, against gay people.
Against gay people, against Asians.
Side of him. I think he's still that same Steve. He's still that. But now you're also seeing another side of him that he never had to show.
Talk show?
His TV talk show.
Okay, this was the one he had on NBC just recently.
Whatever, yeah. The one that, damn, who took his show from him?
Kelly Clarkson.
How can Kelly Clarkson take your show, homie?
Oh no, she also talked about a couple of other big names in the industry.
People that look like me, like Oprah, Tyler, Lee Daniels, and I gotta put my brother Steve on the list. Y'all knew I was not wrong.
Steve Harvey didn't just rise to the top, he climbed over people to get there. At least that's what a growing number of comedians are claiming, and now the laughs have turned into side eyes. Behind all those sharp suits, big smiles, and motivational speeches, some say Steve's journey to fame was filled with betrayal, tension, and silence that's finally breaking. According to his own peers, the road that made Steve Harvey a household name wasn't so clean cut.
You're telling people you work with, I don't want you even to be next to me. Like, I have such disdain for you that I'm annoyed by your presence.
There were whispers of stolen jokes, broken friendship, and quiet backroom deals that left deep scars in the comedy world. For years, nobody said a word. But now, the stories spilling out sound nothing like the one Steve's been selling.
No, I haven't. You know, my thing with Steve Harvey is that he used my material on both his platforms.
Yeah.
After I talked to him, I saw him at Def Jam, I went up and talked to him, I said, man, you're using my material.
Let's break it down. Steve Harvey, the man who went from cracking jokes on stage to running TV empires like Family Feud, Miss Universe, The Steve Harvey Show, and more, built himself into a one-man brand. Radio shows, talk shows, books, podcasts, you name it, he's done it. On paper, he's the ultimate success story. Proof that faith and hustle can turn a broke dreamer into a billionaire brand. But some of the folks who knew him before all the fame say the man on screen isn't the same one from the grind days. So let's rewind to the 1980s and 1990s, the golden age of stand-up comedy. Back then, Steve was just another hungry comic hustling from smoky clubs in Chicago to open mics in Atlanta. He had jokes, charm, and ambition, but so did hundreds of others chasing the same spotlight. And that's where things start getting messy. Names like Mark Curry, D.L. Hewley, Cat Williams, Monique, Cedric the Entertainer, and Bernie Mac. They were all out there grinding, paying dues, and earning laughs one night at a time. They respected the hustle.
That Bernie said in the GQ article that when he got Ocean's 11, Steve had reached out to the producer and said he thought he would be a better fit and tried to get the part and blah, blah, blah. And that was some that, you just don't do.
But more importantly, they respected the code. And in comedy, there's one rule you never break. You don't steal another comedian's material, ever. That's where the smoke around Steve Harvey starts to rise.
Comedians don't appreciate their jokes being stolen, and Steve Harvey has rubbed several comedians the wrong way. Well, it looks like Harvey has found himself in some trouble again.
I think we UPS, I guess, I don't know.
You've heard me say that every Halloween I had the same outfit on. I just had a brown box. And he just told me to tell everybody I was the UPS man.
Well, Steve stole my material on his show, so I had a beef on that.
On what show?
When he was on the bullshit talk show he had, and he did all my Halloween material one Halloween.
He says he knows that Steve Harvey stole his Halloween bit because it was a personal story. He was talking about himself growing up.
It's not just one person throwing shade. This cloud has been following him for years, and one of the loudest voices calling him out is none other than Mark Curry, the star of the classic 90s sitcom Hangin' with Mr. Cooper. Mark's been in this game just as long as Steve, and when an old interview of his resurfaced, he didn't hold back for a second. He said, Steve Harvey stole my whole routine. Mark claimed Steve took the jokes he wrote, put them on TV, and acted like they were his own. And this wasn't just some random rumor. Mark said he saw it happen with his own eyes. When the Steve Harvey Show hit the air, he said he recognized entire scenes, setups, and punchlines, word for word, straight from his act. This isn't the first time someone's thrown that kind of shade at Steve Harvey. For years, there have been quiet whispers from smaller comedians, people who opened for him, wrote for him, or worked behind the scenes, saying he'd take their ideas, clean them up, and make them his own. Some called it inspiration, but others called it straight up thievery. Mark Curry just happened to be the one who finally said it loud enough for the world to hear. He said, It's one thing to be inspired by somebody, but when you steal a man's act, that's robbery.
Steve Harvey is on his third marriage. His third wife was mistress to his second wife.
So what I think, but the first year we did it, it was just me, Bernie, and and Steve.
Right.
And Steve closed.
One of the reasons why you did the first part, the second part.
I think, of course, that was, definitely a contributing circumstance, but I also
love every time, had him on my show every time. But if you're gonna do another stick, just tell the brother that you're sticking with. Dog, I'm gonna be dogging you on the radio.
And that line hit hard. What made it even messier was how the industry reacted back then. They didn't. When Mark tried to call Steve out, nobody wanted to touch it. By that point, Steve wasn't just another comic, he was a brand. The big suits, the perfect smile, the radio shows, the talk show crown, he was untouchable. No one wanted smoke with the king of clean, but Mark wasn't the only one throwing shots. A few years later, Cat Williams stepped into the ring, and he didn't hold back. In one fiery interview, Cat said, "Steve Harvey ain't the king of comedy, he's the king of stealing jokes." That line shook the room because Cat wasn't just talking about jokes, he was calling out loyalty. See, Steve, Bernie Mac, Cedric the Entertainer, and D.L. Hewley were supposed to be brothers in comedy, but behind the scenes, not everything was laughs. They all starred in the original Kings of Comedy, a film that flipped the game for black comedians forever. It was supposed to be about brotherhood, four legends lifting each other up and shining together. But after Bernie Mac passed away, everything got messy fast. Rumors started swirling that Steve used Bernie's death to boost himself, stepping into that king role and claiming the spotlight like it was his alone. Cat Williams broke it down raw. He said, Bernie was the people's champ, Steve was the TV champ, but Bernie never sold out. That's why folks loved him more. That hit deep. Fans started digging through old interviews and suddenly things looked a little different, like that one time on Oprah when Steve talked about Bernie's rise with a touch of jealousy in his tone, or when he told D.L. Hewley, "Some people ain't meant to be stars like me." Yeah, those clips hit real different now, because when comics like Cat, Mark Curry, and Monique are all saying the same thing, that Steve Harvey's success came from stepping over people, you can't help but wonder if there's some truth behind that polished smile. Even D.L. Hewley, one of Steve's longtime friends, hasn't always been on the same page. In a recent podcast, DL said, "Steve knows how to survive in any room, but that don't mean everybody likes the way he do it." He was talking about how Steve can switch it up depending on who's watching. One voice for the streets, another for Hollywood execs. Basically, he's a man who knows how to play both sides, and that's exactly what makes him dangerous in this industry. In comedy, it's all about being real. Real recognizes real. But Hollywood, that's a whole different beast. Hollywood's about survival, and Steve Harvey learned early that to stay on top, you gotta do whatever it takes, even if that means breaking a few hearts along the way. One comic who worked with him back in the day said Steve would smile in your face, laugh with you, then turn around and meet with your agent the next morning, pitching your jokes as his own. That's how you climb the ladder, from small club stages to primetime TV screens. But it also explains why, as Steve's fame skyrocketed, his friendships in the comedy world started fading one by one. Now let's talk about the fallout that everybody saw, the tension between Steve Harvey and Monique. When Monique spoke out about being blackballed in Hollywood, Steve was one of the first to publicly go against her. On national TV, he told her, "You can't sacrifice money for integrity." This is the money game. That clip went viral, and it showed everyone exactly where Steve's loyalty stood. For Monique, it felt like betrayal because she saw Steve as family, a friend, a brother in the comedy grind. But in that moment, she realized he wasn't standing with her. He was standing with the system that shut her out. And that's when fans started connecting the dots again. If Steve was willing to turn on Monique in front of millions, who else might he have turned on behind closed doors? The wildest part? Even Steve himself once admitted he's done things that can't be undone. In an old interview, he said, "I've done things I ain't proud of, but when you hungry, you eat what's in front of you." That one line says it all. Survival first, everything else second. At first, it sounded like just a metaphor until people started realizing it might have been literal, because that's exactly how the comedians who knew Steve describe him: hungry, ambitious, and ruthless when it came to chasing success, the kind of man who wanted to win so badly he didn't care who got stepped on in the process. But here's the thing. The higher you climb, the more people remember who you stepped on to get there. And now, years later, it's all coming back around. Old clips are resurfacing, comedians are telling stories, and fans are finally spotting cracks in Steve Harvey's perfect image. Because this isn't just about stolen jokes anymore, it's about how fame changes a man. Remember, this is the same Steve who preaches about faith and family, but also cheated on his wife and built a brand straight out of Hollywood's pocket. The same Steve who talks loyalty on camera but allegedly cut deals that left his own people behind. Even some of his old radio team have come out saying they felt used and tossed aside once he leveled up. They said, "Steve don't keep friends, he keeps opportunities." Cold words, but maybe true ones. And yet somehow Steve keeps winning. No matter who speaks out, no matter what scandal drops, he just smiles, prays, and cashes another massive check. Family Feud is breaking ratings, his books are flying off shelves, and his motivational clips keep going viral. It's like the hate just slides right off him. Nothing sticks no matter what people say. Maybe that's the real secret. Steve Harvey understands the power of image better than anyone. He once said, "If people believe you're blessed, they'll forget what you did to get there." And looking at where he is now, he might have been right. But here's the real question. Can a man really build an empire off bad karma and still sleep soundly at night? Because for all his fame and success, Steve's also one of the most criticized figures in entertainment. Every year it's something new, another scandal, another headline, another old friend stepping up to say, "That ain't the man y'all think he is." From Bernie Mac's passing to Monique's fallout to Kat's jabs, his name always ends up in the same conversations about Hollywood's coldest players. And that says a lot. At the end of the day, maybe Steve Harvey represents the ugly truth about success. That being talented isn't enough anymore. You gotta be ruthless, strategic, and political. You gotta smile while taking what's yours and pray nobody catches you doing it. Because in this business, it's not always the funniest who win, it's the smartest. And no one can deny Steve Harvey is one of the sharpest players comedy ever produced. But like D.L. Hewley once said, just because you made it don't mean everybody clapping is happy for you. Maybe Steve's rise to stardom was legendary, but it didn't come without casualties. Friendships lost, trust shattered, respect broken, and now, as more comedians keep speaking up one by one, fans are left wondering, did Steve Harvey build his success, or did he borrow it from everyone around him? Either way, the truth's out now. And while Steve's busy writing the next chapter of his empire, the people who helped build the first one are finally telling their side. Comedy might be all about timing, but karma, oh, it never misses its cues. So what do you think? Did Steve Harvey really climb that ladder by scheming and taking what wasn't his, or are these just bitter comedians trying to pull him down? Either way, one thing's crystal clear, laughter might have built his empire, but the silence around him is starting to tell a louder, darker story. This is Buzzed In, where fame meets truth and legends meet receipts. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because we've got plenty more Hollywood stories they don't want you to hear. Stay tuned, the next one's about to get even crazier.